Uber does not want to kill Lyft. They actually need Lyft to survive. If Lyft disappeared tomorrow, Uber might be in some serious trouble simply because of antitrust laws. The one person they don't want to upset or attract attention from is the federal government. Take a look at IBM. They did it and they suffered the federal government's wrath. So it's one thing to think that, but to think that Uber doesn't need Lyft, but they 100% need Lyft. Lyft does several things. They provide competition. They even out the marketplace. They give the appearance of choice to both the driver and the rider. And antitrust laws can be very, very dangerous for big companies. They don't want to become too successful. Yes, Uber fought and is constantly fighting a battle for dominance and global position. But in order to win that war, they 100% absolutely need Lyft to survive, or at least a different rideshare company or ride hailing service. Because if they don't, the next thing you know, you've got a country stepping in, and it doesn't even have to be the United States. There are other countries that have laws that are similar, the UK, the EU. You just do not, Uber does not want to attract that kind of that type of attention, and because of that, they 100% need Lyft to stay in business. Now they're happy where Lyft is, roughly 25% of market share. Uber controlling roughly 75%. So they're super happy with that. I mean, when you go in and you look at Uber and Lyft's stock price, I'm looking at it right now, and Uber's stock price is $84.85. It's up 0.59% this morning. And if you look at Lyft's down 2.91% and is at $18.33. Why isn't Lyft's higher? Why is it so low? And I think that Uber has just done a much better job at branching out and getting into, they have the Uber Eats, they are dabbling in the autonomous vehicles, they have Uber deliveries. I really think that they have Lyft exactly where they want them. There's no doubt in my mind. At the end of the day, competition keeps the marketplace or gives the marketplace an appearance of legitimacy. You have, as I said before, Uber having roughly 75% of the rideshare industry and Lyft at 25%. Regulators are hard pressed to come in and say, hey, you're a monopoly. Because what's going on is it's really, in my belief, a manipulated duopoly with Uber being in charge. Sure, Lyft's its own company and they can do what they want. But at the end of the day, if you drive for Uber and Lyft the way I drive, you see a big difference between the amount of passengers on Uber compared to the amount of passengers on Lyft. And I don't know what it's like in other areas. I have always found that Lyft is on an even keel, generally, or close to an even keel in the inner cities, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, places like that. But when you get out into the suburbs, Uber absolutely, in my opinion and my experience, crushes Lyft. There's just, for every one Lyft ride that I might get in the suburbs, I'm getting 25 or 30 Uber rides. That's a huge, huge difference. All right, let's take a look at some things here. Ride hailing markets. when you look at the market definitions of exactly, the antitrust laws, what a monopoly is, the way it is right now, Uber doesn't even come close to it because of Lyft and because you have other means. You have public transportation, you have a few smaller fringe companies sitting out on the side doing their thing, companies like Bolt or Empower and things like that. I don't really know much about Empower and driving for them. I've looked into it. I did for a little while, but from what I can tell, and I haven't seen anything, they were told to cease operations in Washington, D.C. quite a while ago. I don't know if they're back to doing operations or not. So you're kind of limited as far as competition. You have some regional competition, like I said, with these smaller rideshare companies. You have Waymo coming onto the market, getting into new markets with the autonomous vehicles. And I think Tesla's talking about doing it if they haven't already done so. But the core takeaway from all of this is that Uber, in order to win this war for world or global dominance in the ride-hailing industry and the delivery industry and all the other things that they're starting to dabble in, they 100% need Lyft. They need competition. Because without it, the last thing they want is to attract regulators from any country to come in and say, hey, you need to break up your company because you're violating our antitrust laws. That is the last thing that they want or need. It would be devastating to them. It would hurt their stock price. It would cause all kinds of issues, and they would be in some deep trouble. So at the end of the day, remember, Uber and Lyft, they need each other. Uber needs Lyft more than Lyft needs Uber, that's for sure. But they do need each other. So keep that in mind. It really doesn't affect too much as far as driving. But it's interesting to look at it and think, oh, one day this company's going to go out of business. One day this company's going to go. No. I think if Lyft was truly faced with going out of business, Uber might actually give them the money to stay in business. I think that's how much they need them. Now, I'm not a business guy, but when you look at this and you think, what might the market look like without one or the other? What might the market look like without one or the other? It would be horrible. Especially if Lyft went out of business. I think that Uber would drastically raise prices. Well, maybe not drastically. I think they'd probably tick up their prices on passengers a little bit, but where you would see a huge decrease would be in what they paid drivers. I think they would probably slash our pay even more because what are we going to do? Are we going to go and drive for ourselves? Probably not. Most people aren't going to do that. And there wouldn't be another company to pick us up if Lyft went out. If they went out of business tomorrow, a lot of drivers would just be stuck with Uber, and that would be the end of it. And that would be a bad thing. So remember, if you're a driver and you're out there driving, try to drive for both companies. It's smart to not put all your eggs in one basket anyway. It really is. And, every once in a while, I might actually take a slow day and turn off Uber altogether and just drive Lyft. They don't pay any different than Uber. There's just less rides. So if I'm in a downtown area, I turn off Uber sometimes and just do Lyft. The rides are about the same. So what's the difference? All right, let me know your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Like I said, this wasn't a particularly, this video wasn't particularly about actually driving, but it was kind of about understanding the ride-hailing market and why I think that Uber absolutely needs Lyft. Let me know what you think. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I hope everybody goes out and makes lots of money today. See you guys in the next video.